about your film coming out.
Yeah, let's do it.
So tell me, it's a thriller in dealing with trauma when someone's home is being, you have an intruder.
Given the trailer, I think that's a fair assessment. Intrusion is about an amazing married couple. He's a architect. She's a therapist and breast cancer survivor. And in the wake of her going into remission, they decide to move away from Boston to a small town to kind of reconnect and start a new phase in life where she's healthy and they can be together and really focus on each other. When their house gets broken into twice in so many days, the wife, Mira, played by Freida Pinto, starts to wonder why they moved to this town exactly and who the people are in her life, really. It's about the terrifying unknowability of people and how that blind spot with the people closest to you is even scarier than cancer.
Yikes.
Oh, yikes. It's the feel-good movie of the year. But actually there's it's a really, really fun movie. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. And there is a note of hope at the end. Okay,
well, that's good. We like to hear that. What was it about this story that attracted you to want to direct it?
Great question. I read the script by Chris Sparling, and I fell in love with it for a couple of reasons. First, because I love thrillers. I grew up on thrillers, Seven, The Silence of the Lambs, Black Swan, the movies that just grab you by the shirt collar and keep you on the edge of your seat. I've always loved those kinds of films. And second, and perhaps maybe this is really the first one, is that I'm drawn to personal stories. All of the films that I've made before this their reason for being is because there's something in those narratives that was really important to me. In Intrusion, it actually was the breast cancer story. So one of my best friends from growing up was diagnosed with breast cancer at the same age as the Mira character. And I watched her go from traumatized victim to, over many years, empowered survivor. And I saw how it completely changed her life, at first upending her life, and then really bringing her to this incredible place of maturity and healing at the end of that journey. And the script that Chris wrote, I thought really authentically portrayed that journey of a character who's going to, when we meet her, she's really a traumatized survivor of this horrible illness. And when we leave her, she's a traumatized victim. I mix that up. And when we leave her, she's an empowered survivor. I thought that was really powerfully written in his script. And that's ultimately why I wanted to do the movie.
What better than to bring out that optimism of a cancer survivor instead of, the other side that could have been like letting herself go.
Sure. Well, of course, you'll have to watch the movie to see how she actually gets there. But the film really does ultimately take us to a place of empowerment for this character. And I'm proud of that.
Now let's talk about the cast.
Yes.
Obviously, when it comes to Mira, you had to, really get in the hunt to get the perfect person for it. What was it about Freida that said she's the one?
She's an incredible actress. She obviously was such a standout performance in Slumdog Millionaire, which is also an incredibly standout film. And that performance for me, and I know for so many people, just really lodged in my mind. I always thought of her after that. And I've seen almost everything that she's done between that film and Intrusion. And I always felt that she has a very warm, approachable character. And the Mira Parsons character, because she's a therapist, and a therapist for kids, it really has to have that quality, something that kind of really draws you in and makes you trust her. And I always felt that Freida had that. She actually was our first choice to play the role. So she said yes, and we were rolling.
I have a question for what you just said. So she's a therapist, and here she is dealing with a little bit of a trauma from the home invasion. Do you think the fact that she's a therapist helps her find her answers?
It's interesting. It's so hard to talk about this movie because there's so many things that you can't talk about because there are a lot of secrets in this
nailed
movie.
it.
But the answer is, I'll just say yes, without giving away too much. Her character has, as a therapist would, has a lot of insight into human psychology, and that really starts to spark an investigation into why all of these things are happening. And it also makes her uniquely positioned to get to the bottom of the mystery in the end, because she knows certain things about who people are and how they behave and why they do what they do.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that. You sparked up my curiosity for that question.
Good.
And then what about for Logan?
Logan's amazing. Logan really caught my eye way back in 2010 in a genre film that he made called Devil. And I was always like, who is that? And since then, everything that he's done, I think my favorite thing about Logan is that he's a chameleon. He's always different in completely. Yeah, he looks different. He behaves differently in everything that he does. And that was something that really made me feel like he would be perfect for the role, because because Mira is all of a sudden questioning everyone in her life. It made sense to me that Logan's character Henry would have, that you would just sort of, as an audience, not necessarily be able to pinpoint exactly who he was right off the bat. Obviously with certain actors, their persona is so big that you just immediately have all these impressions about who they are. But because Logan is such a chameleon and is always changing so much in everything that he does, I feel like you don't quite have that read on him. And I think that's a good thing for this story. I
see. And now I understand this film was shot in New Mexico?
True.
And during the pandemic?
Yes, also true. We filmed in Albuquerque, which is interesting because the script was actually originally written to take place in Maine. And to lead to your second part of the question, yes, Intrusion is maybe one of about somewhere between 12 and 15 films that shot during the fall of 2020, during the sort of first part of the pandemic, which is incredible if you think about it, because if there was no pandemic, there probably would have been 1,000 films shooting and all production halted. So it really just came down to those small number of projects that were filmed. Which is it's a miracle that it happened at all. But to go back to the thing about it being written in Maine, ultimately, when we all as a team made the commitment that we were going to figure out how to make this film during the pandemic, one of the decisions that led us to Albuquerque was the idea of really making sure that we could do this as safely as possible. And Netflix has studios in Albuquerque, and there's crew there, and there's an infrastructure to make sure that we could do all the testing and do all the things we needed to do to make sure everyone is safe. And it would have been much harder to do it in a remote kind of wooded environment that didn't have that level of production infrastructure. So that's what took us to Albuquerque.
Did you have to make any adjustments or changes in directing, fundamentally knowing you were doing it in Maine?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I love working with actors. That's one of the things that is most rewarding to me in directing, is having that really close collaboration with actors. And filming during the production actually makes that, during pandemic, actually makes that really difficult. So for example, we had probably the strictest regulations in filming that because of that moment when we were shooting. And one of the regulations was you are only allowed 25% occupancy in any space. So what does that mean? It means that if the fire department says you can have 10 people in a room, then you're only allowed to have 2.5 people in that room. And if you think about it, if a scene takes place in a bathroom, which is only allowed to have 3 people in it, and there are 2 actors in the scene, well, you need the camera person and you need some way to record the sound. So where does that not leave space for? It doesn't leave space for the director. So normally I would just, if in between takes, I would walk in and I would have a conversation with the actor about the scene and how it should change and what we should try next for the next take. But on this shoot, I had to do it over a walkie-talkie, which is not how you would want to do it. But Logan and Freida were so game and so collaborative, and I should say so brave. At this moment, when we were filming, there's, they were the only people on set who weren't wearing masks when we were filming. So they were the ones who really had the courage and took the chance to make this film under the crazy circumstances of filming during the pandemic. And so, in that sense, they really were inspiring to all of us because they were willing to do it, to take that chance.
Well, that speaks highly of everybody, not only them, including you, that you guys were just like, well, we got to adapt if you want to continue.
Obviously, well, thank you. But I'll say that, obviously we're all so passionate about storytelling, about this story and about filmmaking. But there was also another layer, which is it was really, really important for people to go back to work. And this film, for a community in Albuquerque was really important to be able to, get people back in their jobs.
Mm-hmm. That too. Well, thank you so much, Adam. And then just to wrap up, is there anything you can share that you may be working on? Any of your work that we may be seeing in the future?
Thank you for asking. I'm working on another thriller.
Ooh.
I can't say too much about it, but it is also kind of about a past trauma coming back to haunt these characters. And it's super suspenseful. In some ways, it's the mirror image of Intrusion in a way. So I'm really excited for people to see Intrusion, and excited to make this film next, and always cooking up a few other things.
Great. Well, thank you. Keep the thrillers coming.
Of course. That's the plan. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your time.